There is no objection. Question number 2, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister. Does he have confidence in all of his ministers?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister, yes, they are hard-working and competent ministers.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, is he confident that it was a prudent use of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money for his Minister of Education, Mrs Tolley, to take a helicopter joyride over Auckland on the basis, she said, that she wanted an overview of the Auckland University of Technology?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, as the member will be aware, having formed an overview of the globe in his travels as the Trade Minister, including an overview of South America just recently, where he was an extraordinarily influential figure at the conference that he went to. Or so he told the media.
Point of order, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, I understood points of order were to be heard in silence.
Very good point, well made. We will hear it in silence. I thank the
Mr Speaker, the question was quite straightforward. It was specific to a particular minister. We've not yet had the Prime Minister answer that. I think it's time that he addressed himself to the question.
I'm sure the Honourable Bill English will do that.
Mr Speaker, I am absolutely satisfied that the Minister of Education has strong views about her role. Her role as a steward of public funds. The fact is the Crown has substantial investments in tertiary institutions in Auckland, and that government made a number of open-ended commitments which it didn't fund properly, and the Minister of Education has to sort out the mess.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
A supplementary question. Can the Prime Minister explain what the benefits were either for education or for the hard-working New Zealanders whose taxpayer money funded this jaunt for the Minister to have this joyride? And how is this expenditure consistent with the government's demand for value-for-money expenditure?
The Honourable Bill English.
Yeah, who paid for that? Mr Speaker,
Bill English.
On behalf of the Prime Minister,
The Honourable Bill English.
On behalf of the Prime Minister, Mr Speaker, it is quite normal practice for ministers to take rides in helicopters. It's done all the time because what did she see from the helicopter she couldn't see from the car? What did he see in South America that he couldn't see on CNN News?
Order.
And Mr Speaker,
the Honourable Bill English.
The trip, if the trip was paid for by anyone else and the value of it was over $500, the Minister will declare it as a gift on their pecuniary interest register, just the same as I have done myself.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Question, Mr Speaker. How does he reconcile the Minister of Education's decision to sack 70 staff members at the Tertiary Education Commission in order to save money with this cavalier use of taxpayers' money, which could have been spent on strengthening education?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, it is not a cavalier use of taxpayers' money. It is perfectly normal practice for ministers. Perfectly normal practice for ministers. And the redundancies in the TEC were decisions made by the Chief Executive of the TEC. Change in Tertiary Education Commission was well signalled by National and Opposition because it was one of the most wasteful and useless expenditures of public money that the Labor Party invented.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Which of the following statements is correct? Dr Worth saying this morning that he was confident that he had done nothing wrong, or the Prime Minister last week saying that Dr Worth was stupid and unwise?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Prime Minister laid out his expectations very clearly for Dr Worth, and he is satisfied that Dr Worth has met those expectations. But, Mr Speaker, I'm still waiting to hear the apology from the Labor Party for wasting hundreds of millions on the TEC and now getting up and complaining about a helicopter ride by a national minister. When are you going to apologise for the enormous waste of public money while you were in office?
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard. Order. Order. I've recognised the point of order and there will be silence.
Yep. Mr Speaker, it is quite a long time since you have had responsibility for education matters, and asking you to apologise, I think, is inappropriate.
It makes a perfectly fair point, but the exchange of question time is important for the moment, and being to the point of order, the Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I wouldn't want there to be any ambiguity. I was asking for when the Labor Party is going to apologise for wasting hundreds of millions.
Order. I appreciate that. Supplementary question, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Is Dr Worth correct in saying this morning, quote, "I am not on final warning," after his third conversation with the Prime Minister on Saturday night about non-disclosure of interests? And if so, has one strike and you're out as a high standard of ministerial behaviour become 3 strikes and you're not even on notice?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister has made his position absolutely clear. He has set out his expectations of how Cabinet Ministers ought to behave, and Dr Worth has the obligation to meet those expectations.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, is the Prime Minister's failure to deal effectively with Dr Worth because last year Mr Key himself failed to acknowledge his conflict of interest in holding shares in Tranz Rail?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, it's a bit rich to hear the Labor Party talking about conflict of interest when in government it had this parliament pass a law to, in the first place, make legal its illegal and fraudulent expenditure of taxpayers' money on the pledge card, and secondly, to write a set of rules for our electoral system, which were designed explicitly to favour them when they were broke.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Will he act to remove Dr Worth from his portfolio if there are further undisclosed conflicts of interest?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister has stated many times he set out his expectations about how a minister should behave, and it is up to the minister to meet those expectations.